Hey everybody, Jackie Tinker here with the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. I am back with part 2 of Around the Campfire with Larry and Glenda Teaff. If you thought the first episode was good, this one is even better. We jump right in to the episode talking about Larry and Glenda's dogs, and it is such an amazing episode and so inspiring to hear the stories of what these dogs have taught us and the great experiences we've had because of our working Aussies. Join us for this amazing episode with Larry and Glenda. And I want to tell you really quickly before we get started something that I decided to do at my place here in Texas. I'm hosting a farm and ranch camp, a 4-day farm and ranch camp where you can learn how to improve your relationship with your dog, develop your dog more, and learn how to do the farm and ranch tasks from sorting, fetching in large fields, working in pens and alleys. It's going to be really exciting. So if you are a rancher or a farmer and you want to learn how to train your dog to do some of these tasks like holding gates, keeping stock off a feed, and being generally useful around your place, this is perfect for you. If you're into farm and ranch trialing, this will be a way to hone those skills and learn how to be a better trainer and grow your dog training. You could find more information about this on my personal dog training website called stockdogtrainer.com. That's stockdogtrainer.com, and there's a link at the top that says camps. So click on that and you'll see all the information about that, and I'll also post in our Instinctive Aussie group. All right, everybody, just jump in and enjoy this episode with Larry and Glenda, and I will see you down the road. This podcast is dedicated to the celebration and preservation of the working Australian Shepherd. Your Aussie is descended from a proud and amazing lineage of hard-working ranch dogs, identified and cultivated primarily in the Wild West. Contrary to the breed name, the Australian Shepherd is actually an American breed success story. Only in America can a blue-eyed, scruffy dog rise from the dust of the American ranch to become one of the most popular breeds in the world today. The Aussie's beauty, brains, and incredible work ethic and almost empathic connection with their human charges make them unforgettable and pivotal members of the family. My goal is to help you understand this amazing breed, learn more about their heritage and their physical and mental needs so that together we can preserve the working Aussie by encouraging better breeding and better vetting of future Aussie owners, ultimately keeping Aussies with their families and out of shelters. Welcome to the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. So after Bear, what was the next dog? What are some other dogs you had?
We had, I don't know, different ones. At that point in time, we had moved off the ranch, and I had used him. We went from that ranch at Mountain Home to Pipe Creek, where he worked. We run 300 and some odd. I don't even remember, 340, I think. These were all F1 Bremer Cross mamas and calves. And we left George. No, we kept George was still with us, and that's when I tried the border collies. But and so this was getting on up into the mid '90s. We went from Mountain Home to Pipe Creek because I had the opportunity to lease this ranch. It was 5,000 acres of hill country that. I got this land for right at $3 an acre because it was mostly deer hunting. That's all they care about in the hill country is deer hunting. And but anyway, we went through quite a few dogs, but that was on that ranch at Pipe Creek was where I figured out that 2 dogs and sometimes 3 dogs are what's necessary when you're gathering, because we didn't have as good of fences. This was a lease ranch. And not that good of fences, so you couldn't really pressure cattle at the wrong place because they'd jump the fence. So it was easier to gather cattle, and also, don't get me wrong, these dogs, the idea that you can go out and I didn't use these dogs like a big gathering in a big pasture or field. I would influence them with cubes. I mean, I had cubes on the 4-wheeler, and I'm calling these cows with cubes. And Bear is bringing up the backside, and we're moving where we want to go. Cal's following me because I've got a sack of cubes, but him bringing up the back to anybody that don't want to come, and that's 90% of what I did with dogs, and it was I don't know.
But on this ranch, we had so many, and the terrain was so rough because it was hill country.
Up and down, vertical.
We had several dogs, and I'm really embarrassed to say I can't remember the names of all of them. But we would usually take 3 or 4 dogs from the kennel of mornings and then a different set of dogs in the afternoon because it would wear them down. And you had to really watch your dogs. But from the Pipe Creek Ranch, Larry ended up going to work in San Antonio. Yeah. And so we had to cut down on all of our dogs.
Well, the problem with the Pipe Creek Ranch was that it was during the drought. I don't know where you were in 1995, but in that country, I had 5,000 acres. Of that 5,000, I had 2,000 acres of good grass, and I had absolutely zero water. It stopped raining for almost 18 months, and it's all spring fed. And so I went from running all these cows. I finally wound up gathering all my cattle and sending them up to the little place out of Franklin and put them on coastal. And but that year, that's the other side of the cattle business is you have to have rain and you have to have grass, and I didn't have rain. But anyway, we let the ranch go back because we basically had to sell all the cattle and move to town to get a job because the drought just ran us plumb out of the cattle business. And that was and then I've got 3 or 2 really good stock dogs. Who was the other dog that we had? We had Bear and George, and what was the other one?
At this moment, I cannot remember the other dogs, but we ended up having to sell all of our dogs except for like Divvy, Bear, George. And then I picked up a dog from George Costa out in California. And he was a hanging tree windsong dog. And this was going to be our next really strong working dog. Well, he didn't think working was all his game. I tried trialing the dog, and I felt like Custer's Last Stand out in the arena up there at Whitesboro because I was in the middle and he was just chasing them all around me constantly. So we started drifting more into other fields. Maverick was an excellent agility dog, flyball dog. He loved flyball. So we've kind of drifted to other venues. And from that, we were living in town. We had to move into San Antonio. I kept wanting another dog like Bear. So I contacted Slash V, and I talked to Terry and told her I need something, that Larry can work. But in the meantime, there was another futurity coming along. So we picked up a dog from Neil and Judy DeShazo, my little D dog. And Larry started training her for the futurity. Well, she was good, but she was weak. She just did not mature fast enough. She didn't have the maturity for a futurity. And a lady called us wanting to know if Larry could train her dog. And the dog was about 6 months old. And Larry said, well, let's bring him out. He's just a puppy. Let me look at her. This dog was Shelby. And Larry will have to tell you about Shelby because she was the next working dog that he worked for 2 years.
The lady that we're talking about, she brought the dog out there, and she was having all kinds of trouble with his dog because this little dog, she'd gotten him from Terry Martin and gotten her from Terry Martin, and she would they were hobby farmers or hobby ranchers that lived right outside of San Antonio there, and they they bought the place next to us. And then by then, Glenda and I, we couldn't continue to live in town. And by then we'd left San Antonio or Windcrest. We had a nice home in Windcrest, but we got to driving out in the country, and that's when we found the place down in out of Stockdale and moved out there. And I'd bought some more land behind us, and when we left Pike Creek, Glenda had to make me swear that I'd never own another head of livestock because we went through that drought. And quite honestly, we went bankrupt trying to hang on to those cattle, and finally wound up giving the cattle away. But if nobody's ever been through that, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, because that was some of the roughest times I'd ever been in the cattle business. But anyway,
Yeah.
I tell people that agriculture or ranching is like you're born with it. It's like a disease. It's terminal. You're going to keep it till you die, because you
Yeah.
always want livestock. You always want to get back in there, and you always think you can figure out a way to make money in the cattle business. So anyway, we move out to this to our place at Stockdale, and then the futurity comes along, and our neighbor gets the place next to us, and she knows that we're fooling with dogs, so she brings this little 6-month-old pup over to where we're. Oh, and we had a nice set of pens. I'd built some pipe pens and what have you. And she unloads Shelby. Well, Shelby's one of these that she'll bite you. I mean, she don't like people. She's an ornery little devil, and she likes Karen. That's her mama, or her lady that owned her, but she don't like anybody else. Well, I take her out on some calves that I had in those pens there, and all of a sudden she's my best friend, and she loads these calves in a trailer in the middle of that pen, and she's got really good gathering instincts. She's got really good balance. She's got really good group. I mean, and she can push cattle, and she can hit her heel, and she's 6 months old. And I thought, thank you, Lord, I've got me a futurity dog here. And so that was the little dog and Dee, our other little dog that Glenda was talking about, that we got from the Chazos. It wasn't that she didn't have the instinct and she didn't have the group or anything else. She just was slow maturing and by a futurity dog, they have to be ready to go and take on just about anything by the time they're 2. And Dee couldn't do that. She just was a little bit slow. It's not. She was great on sheep and wonderful, as a matter of fact. I mean, she had all kinds of raid and good instincts to work sheep. She was a wonderful sheepdog. And ducks. But when you go to pushing cattle, when they got, as long as it was an influence and drift, she was fine with it. But when they turned on her, she would hesitate, and then she wouldn't walk into them. And I tell people all the time, you can tell a good stock dog, or just any dog that's good on cattle, if they don't, when you're walking with a group of yearlings, or it's just about any cattle, of any size, there'll be one in the group that will turn and look at the dog. And then if the dog holds his ground or takes a step forward, most of the time that calf will turn around and go back into the group and keep going. But if that dog hesitates, shies back, looks away, or shows any kind of weakness, usually that calf will turn around and he'll address that dog, face up to him. And if the dog still won't walk into them cattle, you've lost all respect from that calf for that dog. And that's all the dog's got to do, is he's got to walk into them when at exactly the right moment. When that moment of confrontation, that dog has to walk up, hold his ground at the very least, or walk up or stare him head on. And then if he does, 99% of the time, cattle that are used to being worked by dogs will turn and just go right on down the line. And that's the difference between the dog that can work cattle and one that can't. That desire. But anyway, Shelby had that in spades, and Dee didn't. But I took Shelby all the way down through the futurity, and we had some luck in the futurity, and she did really well. And she was the next really good dog that I had the privilege of working, because she wouldn't back up, but she wasn't mine. She belonged to Karen Henderson. And so she was a privilege to work. But we did have Dee, and then...
But as Dee got older, she started really maturing.
Yeah, after she got to be about 2.5 years old, Glenda was working her up at Whitesboro, because she was trained, and she knew her well trained, and I'll let Glenda tell that story about, because she really surprised me one day. I mean, I'd give up on her, decided that she wasn't going to be that good. She was a good Aussie, and don't get me wrong, and she was wonderful on sheep and ducks, but she was weak on cattle until she got to working with Glenda, and all of a sudden she found her desire to work on cattle.
I was able to take Dee and get a witch on her, and then she was so much fun, because that dog would do anything I wanted. And there are several handlers out there that had worked at Whitesboro with, it was actually on the Westerman's place. And they had some really good cattle. And plus, they had beefalo. And Dee was one of these dogs. I don't care what cow you put in her to work, she could work it. And it really became a lot of fun. And Mark was constantly trying to trick me up on something. So one day he gives me 4 calves and 1 beefalo. And he said, let's see her work these. And little Dee went in there and we took high and trial that day. She shined. But from Dee, we lost her at an early age, right after I witched her.
After Waco.
After the Waco trial, the Waco Nationals, that January, I lost her to cancer. And she was quite young. We used her on the ranch all the time, and it just hit her quickly. She never showed any signs. And when I took her to the vet after her limping one day, the cancer had already honeycombed into her bones. So from there, we come up with a little dog from Melinda. And this little dog, Trey, was something I really had a lot of fun with. And he was good. You know, we had a few cattle and we could do things. And all of a sudden, one day we lost Trey to an accident. And we got panicked. We could not gather our livestock. So Larry calls Kent Herbal, and he's got a dog. He said, you're welcome to take him. He's 10 years old. Give him a try, and we'll talk about it.
We saw him work in Greeley.
He always worked in Greeley at our nationals. He would go out and bring the cattle back in when a person couldn't finish a trial. He was a beautiful red merle, and he was double dude bred. He was a hanging tree dog. And Larry can tell you about Trey. I'm sorry, about, I go blank on my names. I went blank on his name. It was Deuce, was his sister. And he even has his own, Ty. I'm sorry. There it is, Ty. He was very good. And I'll let Larry tell you about Ty. He's the one that brought us up and kept us going until we got Blue and Red Bear.
Well, we figured out, or I figured out, that it was so much easier to work multiple dogs than it was just one dog. Because when we were down at Stockdale, our place was situated where it was all, we didn't have the hills and all the problems that I had at Pipe Creek, but what we had was improved pasture and irrigated pasture. And so basically we spent a lot of time. I had really good perimeter fences around. It was about 230 acres, and then I had a pivot systems, and I had side row systems and K-line systems to water the grass. And of that 200 and something acres, it was all in this improved grass, except for about 2 acres of timber that I had in the back one of the pastures that I'd put the cows back there in the hot summer days and under the shade. But anyway, I figured out, and all these cows were, again, in South Texas, it's these F1 cows. It's the Bremer Cross, and it was got back in the cattle business. I bought cheap cows. And in 2011, there was a lot of people that was the next drought that came along after the 95 drought. And a lot of people were getting rid of, the way ranchers work is they cull the cull cows first, and then they cull the ones that didn't breed back as fast. And then you get in about the 4th or 6th month of a drought, at the right time, they start culling their really good cows, or they'll start selling them as pairs. They'll wait till their cows have a calf, and then they'll take them to the sale and try to get more money as a pair. And the cow will be too thin because you haven't been able to feed her that good because of the no rainfall. And so the packers don't want the cow, and they got a calf on her, so she don't bring much. And so I bought a lot of pairs because I had irrigated pasture and I had grass. And so we really stocked up in those years and got up to what I wanted to run on these pastures. But I figured out that I could take Ty, which was he was getting up in his years, 10 years old, And then I could take the pups. I had Red Bear then, and Blue was coming along, but I would take the good trained dog that would do the backup, and then you could put the pups out there in these big open fields with these cows, and that's what I was doing. I was moving them. I moved my cows about once a week. I'd put them in another pasture, and it was all electric fences, and moved in quarters of a pivot. I'd run maybe 15 acres in a pasture, and but anyway, you send these pups out there with this trained dog, and first thing you know, they pick it up, and it makes training a whole lot easier, and it also builds confidence in these pups to work cows. And that's what we did. I kept a few sheep just to train the rights and lefts on, and the steadies and the walk-ups and all that stuff. But as far as grouping and the instinct of working, that's how I trained a pup, was put him out with a mature dog that I could down anywhere I wanted him to, and then teach the dog to down and get them to hold a flank, and they pick it up real quick. And but that's and then Red Bear,
she was the healer.
Yeah, and that's what you'll also see in stock dogs, especially dogs that work cattle, is if you're fortunate to have a dog that'll hit the head and heels, that's a really a good gift. Some dogs just won't hit heels. They just won't, and some dogs won't hit heads. I've got the ones that hit the heels will check your fences on the backside because they'll get behind them and chase them till they stop. But if you got one that just always goes to the head, and different strains of Aussies have different characteristics. One thing I want to buy in a stock dog is a headhunter, one that you get a group of calves going down a fence, and one of the calves hesitates, and the dog runs up there and jumps up in their face and tries to run and slash and bite on the blow by. That to me, that's as bad as not doing anything at all. I'll get on a dog quick as that, because I can't stand headhunters, and I want a quiet, easy, powerful dog that has a lot of confidence. That's what I want in a stock dog. And most of the ones that I've gravitated to over the years showed those characteristics. I don't want one that's barks all the time. I want one that barks on command. I don't want one that's shy about a tough situation. You get them in a gate, you need to put them through a gate or in a chute. That dog needs to bite when he's told, hold when he's told. Most cardinal sin is a dog that won't down where he stays, and you tell him to down and you stay. A stock dog can get a person killed if they jump up and go after cattle when you're in a tight quarters, and they won't down and stay. I mean, there's several things that I look at for stock dogs, and that's what I look at when I'm judging dogs. I look for those kind of characteristics.
Well, the thing we had with Red Bear and Blue would work the calves, bringing them up to the house. Blue would always work the side and go into the head. Red Bear was the healer. She stayed behind and brought them in. And working two dogs together is fantastic. But then you run into a problem of working them separate. And I tried with Red Bear. She is very good at what she does, but I took her up to Betty's cow camp several years ago, and I thought, man, I can work this dog. She's good. She had never worked by herself. And it took Betty extra time with me to get Red Bear to work. And to this day, Larry can do anything with her. I try to work her, and I just get frustrated. She's good, but working two dogs together can be a challenge to work them separate.
Yeah, because they learn their jobs and they learn to help each other out, and they may get habits of not handling a whole side, or one handles one side and one handles the other side, or does one part of the job, the other one does the other part of the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh my goodness, I loved hearing about all your dogs, because the current dogs you have now are Red Bear and Blue, right? Those are your current dogs, and yes, you have one of their puppies as well.
They are so bored. We sold our ranch in South Texas and moved into a small town out here in West Texas. And they get bored. We go over to Dana's quite often. But now during this pandemic, we have all been kind of homebound. And so the dogs are very bored.
It's hard to move those country dogs into the city. It takes a little bit of adjustment there. Hopefully this pandemic thing will go over fast and we can go back to life as normal.
Yes, I agree.
Hopefully, yes. We're all hoping for that and trying to stay the plan. And I don't know. Life as we know it may have changed. I don't know. We're kind of worried about it, but
it'll go back to some sort of normal. You know, after 9/11, life changed, and we thought it would never be the same, and we kind of got used to. We'll create a normal that we're used to now. So we can't tolerate too much restriction here. So,
I count our blessings that throughout the years we got our first Aussie in 1986, which was Divvy. So we've had a lot of dogs come and go, and we have been very blessed with all the friends we have met and all the travels that we have done. The dogs have been a blessing to us, and I look forward to, I hope, many years to come to keep enjoying them. So we adjust.
Yeah, you know, and that's one of the best things about this sport or this thing that we do is that we get to meet the best people. And I include you two in my favorite people list because I've known you for a long time. And I mean, it's just, I love hearing your stories. And I love the fact that you use dogs on ranches to do what they were bred to do, you know? And that's an amazing thing. So,
well, we've had a privilege of doing it. And I have to go back to when we first got into Aussies. I had received a dog from Louisiana. She wanted the dog trained, to work stock. No, actually, I'm sorry. She wanted the dog to do obedience. And I was working her one day, and Larry, I could hear him down the way because our place was divided by farm to market road. And I could hear him hollering at the cattle. They had gotten out. They were on the farm to market road. It was sunset. And I thought, man, these dogs were bred to work. I'm going to go down there and help him gather those cows. They've never seen a cow. The cows have never seen a dog except all the coyotes that we had. So I go down there and I unload Divvy and Lucy. And I'm thinking, okay, these dogs can work. And Larry looked at me and he said, what are you doing? Get those dogs out of here. We're going to have cows in every corner of this county. And I thought, oh, okay, I screwed up. So basically, he had no idea that these dogs could work. And I had him go with me to Huntsville to a show one time with Divvy, and I had a little confirmation dog I was showing. And he's sitting up in the stands, and that's when he saw Tony Roan with Bud. And these poor college boys, they were trying to move the cattle back down to the other end of the arena after each run. And Tony would sit there and he'd say, Bud, go help him. And old Bud, he'd climb down out of the stands and go out to those pens, and he'd move the cattle back. Larry thought, these dogs can do something. So that's really what got Larry into working Aussies. So he had no choice. He had to take Divvy as a learning tool and go from Divvy to a dog like Bear. And we have had some awesome dogs from several kennels. And I've even had people tell me one of my dogs was a miniature Aussie, to the fact of arguing with me. And I finally convinced her. I said, don't tell me this. I bred this dog's daddy. And, we just can't go there.
Yeah. The old Tony Roan's dog, Bud, that was a really tough dog. He would bite you too. I remember being trapped in his garage with Bud and Dee closing in on me by myself. Those two dogs were closing in on me. I was like, help.
Yeah, he would bite.
Fortunately, I was rescued before they were able to get their mouths around my leg. But
I'll tell you a story about Bud. A lot of our early years in the 80s, Tony had Bud, Red had Slip, and
Mm-hmm.
and those were, I mean, foundation dogs that people still think about today. And like I say, I had Divvy. Well, we had a trial there in Abilene called the Heritage Classic, and we had, it was a big trial. Had confirmation, trialing, obedience, the whole 9 yards. And Tony and Red were judging at that trial, and of course I was there with Divvy. And like I say, Divvy was a little dog that, I mean, and this was the time when the video games were coming up, and she was, you could just take that little dog and put her anywhere. But anyway, Red and Tony and I were sitting out there, and there was a little old arena that they used to show cattle because this is the fairgrounds there in Abilene. And so it's about maybe 100 feet wide and maybe 150 feet long. And there was a set of barrels sitting out in the middle of this little old arena, and we're sitting around that arena drinking beer. And so we finally and we'd been drinking for a little while, and we had the dogs there, and the sheep were just right next to us there, and they'd put them up in some stalls there for the night. And so we kind of got to talking. Well, let's just have us a little go round here, a little jackpot. And so Red, he whips out or Tony whips out $1 bill and pops it on top of the barrel, and I whip out my $1 bill and pop it on the barrel, and Tony he whips his out, and so we got $3 in the pot here, and we're going to set these barrels in a figure 8 out here in this little arena, and we're going to take these 5 head of sheep, and we got to sit here. We're at the table where we're drinking beer, and we have to get these dogs to put these sheep through this course like a barrel race. And we dug us a line across out there in the arena, and so we sat there, and that was and Tony and Red with Slip and Bud had beat me in every trial that I'd ever been in. And I mean, you had to go some to beat Slip or Bud in a trial. But anyway, so here we are, and we go through this thing. I don't remember who went first. We drew straws or something. But anyway, long story short, Divvy beat Bud and Slip in that little jackpot that we did right there. And that was the highlight of my career at that point, because I mean, I could put her anywhere, and she could handle sheep. I mean, like handle them like little joystick. But anyway, old Red Oliver, he just could not believe it that I'd beat him and Slip in that deal. And like I say, we'd been drinking beer pretty regularly that day. And so he's got this money clip, and he pulls out and he says, well, you might as well just take this money clip too. And he slapped that money clip down there. And I still have those $3 bills and that money clip that I have in my trophy case. That was my first futurity.
It was a silver money clip with Red's name on it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I was absolutely ecstatic about that. And I guess that's kind of why I like the gunfights. I like to go to the fraternities. I like things, and I judge a lot of trials, and people are very much, for a first timer or somebody to go out there and really do well in a trial and get their qualifications and everything. It really is a crowning event. But that little deal right there kind of hooked me on dogs, and that's when I really got serious about looking for me a good stock dog.
Yeah. Well, I always want to be around people that are better than me, and when you can actually beat some of those people that are big names, the famous people who win finals, every now and then you get to beat them once or twice at a trial. It kind of just keeps you hooked in forever. And those of us that are competitive,
well, and it's hard to get up to our age and try to get out there and compete with these young ones, because we just don't move as fast as we used to.
Well, I judge a lot, and that kind of and quite honestly, I'd rather judge than I had trial, because I just love watching a good dog and a good set of good teamwork out there. But one of the things that I've done in the last few years, it started in Waco, but I like the pre-trials, the advanced in the pre-trial, because then you get to go up against all the dogs that are in the finals, and it's a pretty good gauge is how you're going to do. And that's what I did with D. That was the last time I really got into it. because a lot of times, for whatever reason, the Nationals, I usually have something going on there. I'm either judging or something, and so I don't get to really, and I don't push for finals or anything like that. Bear was the last dog I really run in the finals, and that was after he'd gotten up in age and he'd really gotten hurt and wasn't all there. He got kicked in the head real bad at a trial in Wharton. But he was the last dog that I really had any interest in the finals on. But I always like to go to the pre-trials and get in the advanced run on the pre-trial. And that's a really good gauge of how you can do. Because I'm like you, Jackie. I like to go up against people that really do a good job. And we have some excellent dogs and excellent handlers in our organization now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I always say that the thing about it is, a lot of these handlers that work out there now, they can take my dog and take it into the arena and beat me with it because they're that much good. They're much better handler than I am. And I always admire these people that can really show up at a certain time. And that's the other part, is take a dog out of a crate, walk into an arena that's really a high pressure situation and really do well. And I think that's where our finals show, because a lot of dogs can really do well in certain situations, but then they have a hard time when the pressure is really on, and the handler has a hard time when the pressure's on. And you kind of separate the wannabes from the can-dos in a lot of those situations. And I like the gunfights. I like when something's on the line. I like, going for money or going for placement or whatever. In a regular trial is fine, but when you get into the big trial, that's when I like to participate.
One thing I'd like to say, Jackie, is after trialing Dee and working with her, and then one thing I really admire was Dana did a videotape of all the working dogs at Waco. And I had never really watched my dogs work, but she videotaped Dee at Waco. And of course, I lost her shortly after Waco. And when Dana gave me the tape, I couldn't watch it. It just hurt too bad. And I got it out when we moved up here and started watching it just to watch my dog. And Larry kept telling me she was a little off that day, that she wasn't on cue like she should be. Videotape your dogs and watch them work, because if there's something wrong, it's going to show up. And I could tell by that videotape, Dee was slowing down. Her cancer had developed so fast in her, and she never showed any signs. And we couldn't figure out why she was not on that day. So videotape your runs. Get someone to videotape them and watch your dogs and watch your commands and your motions, because it always comes back. That dog is trying to please you the best he can. And usually, as handlers, we don't see the mistakes we're making.
Oh, for sure. And Dana is the queen of videotaping. Every time we go work dogs, she videotapes my dogs. And I don't usually watch them all the time because I'm busy. But last time I was out there, one of my dogs, Copper, was working a bunch of baby goats that weren't weaned yet. We had separated them out. Their mamas were on the side of the fence of the arena. And so we were just working baby goats, and we pulled the baby goats off the back fence and brought them down, and we're just fetching them. And I was kind of irritated because I just thought Copper was being too pushy, and, he controlled them, and those baby goats did not run back to the fence. And I just thought he was being too pushy. And Dana was like, man, that dog did such a good job. And I said, I was just irritated. He's too pushy. She's like, what else did you expect him to do? He kept all the goats together, and they were trying to break off every second to go back to their mamas.
Uh-huh.
And so I pulled that videotape out and watched it when I got home that afternoon. And by goodness, I was like, wow, he really did a good job. I was just being too hard on him.
Exactly.
And then there's just so many things. It helps you as a handler. Like, oh, you were given the wrong command the whole time. That's why it wasn't working so well.
Oh, yes.
Oh, we've all been guilty of that.
We have all been very guilty.
I'm going through I was doing really good for a while, but right now I'm going through a really bad phase, and I don't understand. When you were talking about the gunfights, when I first started trialing again with Harley, my dog now, she's the first one I've trained from the full on beginning, and she's a tough little nut. But, I always wanted to have the nice stock and everything to make it easy for her. But now that she's trained, I really like going to those trials where the stock don't just walk around the course, the cattle fight
Right.
or they are hard to keep together. And we went to one in Georgia where they were working full-grown roped steers that had been roped for a very long time. And those steers work differently than other stock. And I always find that fun and challenging. Like, what can we do now? You know, we've got our witch, we've got finals points. What can we do now? What's the next challenge? What's the next? I want some really light sheep that I can have to work, and sheep that are challenging now. It's kind of changed my perspective on trialing. I don't really care. I mean, I want the scores and I would like to win and I'm very competitive, but I want to see what my dog can do. And I think that we limit and we don't always see how amazing these dogs are. And trialing doesn't always give you that. You know, when you're working at home and you're doing all this great stuff and these dogs do something epically amazing, we don't get to always see that at trials. But then, like Larry was saying, the trials also bring a different kind of pressure and a different level of training. And so it's really cool to be able to do so much with them, work them at home and trial.
It is. And to walk out in that trial arena or into any venue, you have got to have a mindset and just really concentrate on it's just you and your dog and try to block everything else out. And it can be very difficult. I had the privilege of doing the NBA halftimes for the Spurs with Maverick on fly ball. And to block that entire crowd out and get out there and perform with your dog, it takes a lot of mental structure.
Yeah. I remember my first nationals when I was 14 or 15 or so with Raisin. And I went up, it was 1990 in Colorado, Loveland, Colorado. And we were going in for sheep. And a lot of dogs had been called for time for whatever reason. I don't remember because I was so young. And they didn't really get them around the course. And I went in there and Raisin liked to bite, and she didn't ever bite hard, but she always wanted to bite the sheep. And I could always see her doing it. She would always look at me before she did it. So I could always tell and tell her no, and she wouldn't do it. She got a warning in the take pen, and then I got so nervous because I had walked right by Kay Harris and Sherry Baker and Red Oliver and all these people that were so famous in my mind and so intimidating that we got in that arena. And back in the day, we had course A and course B, and the dogs would know, Raisin would. If I pointed her clockwise, we were going course B, counterclockwise, we were going course A, and she'd run the whole course. And that happened. We got in there and I froze. I couldn't say a word. I couldn't remember go by way to lie down. I couldn't remember anything. And she just looked at me and, you know, I guess I pointed her in the right direction. She was course A. She ran that whole course, and every now and then she'd look back at me like, and it seemed like that arena was huge. Like I could barely see her so far away, you know.
It was big.
Yeah,
so huge. And and I was like, oh my God. And I couldn't say anything. I was just frozen. So I was standing at the Y chute, just frozen. And she'd look back every now and then. She'd be driving the sheep, and she brought him to the Y chute. And I mean, we had this beautiful run, and she looked at me again, and I saw the larceny in her heart, and she really wanted to bite. And I couldn't say no, Raisin. And so she pulled a little wool on the back, and we got disqualified. But you're right about that mindset thing. If your mind's not right, you can't help your dog at all.
Exactly. And so, you know, just before you get ready to go in the ring, walk away from the crowd and don't let anybody come up and just start talking to you, because it can change your mindset so quick.
I tell people, you know, everybody's always afraid to kind of go out there and make a fool of themselves in the arena. They're always afraid they're going to do something. And I tell people, there's not anything that you can do in that arena that I hadn't already done as a judge. I guarantee you, I have stood in the center of that arena, shouted the wrong command on more than one occasion. I have
even had the dog come back and bite him because it's the wrong command.
I've went to do a take pen, stood right in the middle of the gate, just like I've seen a lot of other people do, telling the dog to get back, and the dog's trying to bring him out of the pen. He has to run him over the top of me to get him out of that pen. So there's not anything that anybody can do that hadn't already been done in spades. And so I encourage people not to be too intimidated by going out there and trying to do what they can do, and relax a little bit and just have some fun with it, and don't get all wrapped up in you know, what other people are going to think or whatever people or how your little dogs are going to do, because most of the time the little dog does well. It's the handler that has the problem. And
I had the opportunity to work with Blue. I've been doing farm trials with him, and I thought, man, this dog's trained. So we go to Louisiana, and I'm going to do a farm trial with him. And it dawns on me, I don't care how well a dog's been trained by someone else. as a handler, you haven't trained that dog, and he's used to the other commands of the other handler. But I have really enjoyed just doing farm trials with Blue, because Larry, has trained him and witched him, and he's been a rather difficult dog at times, but I've enjoyed him. So he's the one that I'm kind of working with now.
He's a nice dog. And I like farm trials. I love farm trials because they're less intense, I think, as far as the actual, and they make sense to the dog. You can, you work your dogs at home. If you have stock and you do any kind of work at home, like pens and vaccinations and alleys and work like that, your dogs, Aussies just get that. I mean, you barely have to train them to do some of that stuff because it's just so natural in them. So I love farm trials. I think they're awesome.
Oh,
they're awesome.
Yes.
It's a good dog. Blue's a really nice dog. And about the whole making a mess thing, I said, just go ahead and make a fool of yourself and get it over with, because it's going to happen eventually.
That's true.
You're going to do it. And the people that we trial with, most of my trialing's here in Texas, but last year I was able to go all over the country and trial. And, you sit on the sidelines with people and watching other runs, and everybody, I just haven't met any really mean people. Everybody's very encouraging, and, oh my goodness, if they're just very positive, and if they give criticism, it's usually very constructive and it's very positive to help you, even though they're your competitor. Even the most competitive people that have a reputation for being competitive have always been very supportive. So most of the people out there are not going to judge you. they're supportive.
That's the good part of the ASCA organization, is it's just full of good people. That's one of the reasons that I like to judge. I like to go. We got people we know, acquaintances and friends all over the country, and that's the really, really good part of the ASCA group and everything. And everybody's competitive, but then again, everybody's supportive, and that's the heart of the deal.
Yeah, because we all, whether we disagree or not on this bloodline or that bloodline or, all that stuff, the people that are out there working truly have the best interest of the dog. We may not agree on how to get there, or we may not appreciate the same exact traits in dogs, everything, but we're all trying to make the dogs better, and we're all trying to show that they can be great dogs.
Well, people enjoy their individual dog, and that's what the thing about it is this is Fido. This is your little soulmate. So, be proud of what you do here. Everybody messes up. Everybody has a bad day, or everybody can have a good day, and you don't know. And so but you gotta roll with the punches, have a good time with it, and then just enjoy what you're doing, and don't take yourself too seriously, because it's not life and death here. We're just out here to plunk your money down and see what he does and have a good time. That's the whole secret of the deal, is make it a good experience, and not get all wrapped up in the minutia of what has to be a perfect run and all that kind of stuff. Because these dogs they feed off of us, and sometimes we give them the wrong ingredients going in there. So it's but that's one of the good things about being in the ASCA organization, as opposed. And I don't know. I haven't spent a lot of time. I was an AKC judge for a while, but it wasn't the same experience it is with the ASCA organization. I just not that it was good or bad. It was just different. And so I have done some of the HPA and all this kind of stuff. So most of the time, stock dog people are a very, very good group of people. And there's a few exceptions, but by and large, they're all a good group.
They are. Oh my goodness, you guys, I've really enjoyed this conversation. My first dog show, I didn't trial at the Heritage Classic because I had a little mixed breed dog before Dana gave me Raisin. But the Heritage Classic in Abilene, one of those was my first dog show ever. And this conversation has reminded me of all those. After the trial, my favorite part was after the trial, we'd all sit around a campfire and tell stories about dogs. And the dogs would all be running around. Back in the day, we didn't have all our dogs on leashes except for if they bit people. And those dogs usually weren't on leashes. They were just sitting in the truck behaving themselves. But we used to sit around and share stories and tell stories. And that's what this conversation has felt like to me. And that's why I wanted to have you guys on because you have great stories and you guys are awesome people.
We talk too much, Jackie. Apologize here.
No, this is awesome. I really, really appreciate you guys being on. And if you ever have anything else you want to share with the group, I would love to have you back anytime.
Well, we've enjoyed it. And thank you very much for getting out there. You're one of the new technology people that is able to do things, and I wouldn't know how to even begin to put something like this together, but thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Hey, and that's the show today. Thanks for joining me. I hope you really enjoyed it and got to learn something about this amazing breed, the Australian Shepherd. Join us on Facebook. We have a private group called the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. Join the group and join the conversation there. You can also find us online at theinstinctiveaussie.com. That's where you'll find all the show notes, the links to anything we talked about this show, and all of our past episodes. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you find your favorite podcasts, and that way you'll be the first ones to know as soon as an episode is uploaded. All right, everyone, I'll see you down the road.